at least if I know what I don't know, we can fix it. But it's the I don't even know what I don't know part. So with that in mind, can you tell me a little bit, or do you have a quick few things that maybe most people don't know they don't know when it comes to hiring?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I think are important, particularly for business owners, new business owners, solopreneurs, folk who are hiring the first 1 through 100th employee. How about that? Let's cover everybody. I think that the first thing is to understand that you're engaging upon something that is not organically understood, right? So hiring employees to work your vision is something you need to understand. You're asking someone who is not you to carry forth this baby, to help you carry this baby that you've birthed, and you put your money, your blood, your sweat, your tears, your family, everybody through it all to bring this to life. So what we typically don't know as business owners is that there's legality around engaging an employee, right? So you want to get an expert to help you navigate those pitfalls, because there can be some. Hiring one employee requires a job description. Hiring even just one employee requires a handbook. Those are things that have to happen because you want to protect this vision and this baby that you birthed, right? You want to make sure that you're setting yourself up to engage this new employee, to give them the best opportunity to set up win-win scenarios. One of the other things I think is really important is, in the same way that we've done needs assessments to make sure and done the research to make sure that this business is something that we believe will work, you want to go ahead and make sure you're ready for an employee, as opposed to an intern, as opposed to an independent contractor, as opposed to your cousin coming down the block to help you put some books in order.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You said the magic word, the needs assessment. So what is a need assessment and how do we do one?
Sure. I think we do needs assessments all the time. It's something that is pretty organic for us. We look to see, oh, there is a gap in the world. There's a gap in our field. There's a gap in our sector, and I want to fill it. Quick needs assessment. There's something that needs to be done. For engaging your first employee, you want to make sure that you're ready to do so. Right. So let's assume that you take a look at your business and say, OMG. And every solopreneur, every entrepreneur has been in this place where they say, I need help. So knowing that you need help is, of course, the first step to your assessing that you need help. But what kind of help do you need? Right. So you want to take a look at what is the work that you're looking to accomplish? What are the tangibles and the visceral needs that need to be filled for you so that you can get the job done? So you want to take a real good look at who you are, what type of employer you're going to be, what type of employee you're looking for. There's a lot of research out there about the categories of humans, the millennials, the Generation X, the generation, we're going to finish the alphabet and start with A all over again at some point. And you need to figure out, who are you looking for, the type of person you're looking for. And that is time that you spend with yourself, right? That's time that you spend with yourself to figure out if I am ready as a leader, if I'm ready as a business owner to release and pass on some of the responsibility of my business to someone else. That is critical because we're all A-type personalities. It is what it is. Right. To make sure, because it takes a bold somebody to decide that you want to go out and build a business. Right. So we're all bold about it. Let's just agree with that. And then you have to decide what aspects of your boldness in your business you want to release and put into the hands of someone else. Once you've gotten to the point of, and this is work, once you've gotten to the point of deciding, yep, I think I'm ready, this is the pieces of the business that I want to pass on to someone else to be accountable for, then you get to the work of crafting that on paper. The world calls it a job description.
Awesome. I love that you touched on this concept. I found a lot of people go into business for themselves thinking that it's just business. And the journey of owning a business and being an entrepreneur is a journey of self-discovery through and through, because there's nowhere to hide. So any
Absolutely.
insecurities, any challenges, all of that just comes bubbling to the surface when all of a sudden we're the ones on the forefront. And you had said it's time spent with yourself to figure out what you need and then what you can release. And you had this amazing quote that I typed up real quick from Monday, and it was, self-awareness is the benefits of self-employment, which ties into successful entrepreneurs realizing that benefit. Um,
Absolutely.
so freaking amazing.
Self-awareness, right? So we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. Let's just say that. But so that we get some benefit out of this time spent together, self-awareness is key, because when you're hiring an employee, when you're having someone who is not going to be joined with you at the hip, right? So they're going to be in another room, they're going to be at another computer, they're going to be trusted to do work that you engage them to be involved in. You need to really understand who you are, right? What you can tolerate, and the type of person that's going to fit, a three-letter word. It fits within your vision, within your goals, within the growth of your business.
When it comes to hiring, it starts with like the whole finding part of it. And I
Yeah,
know
yeah, yeah.
that's like the bane of everyone's existence at this point, and
Recruitment.
mine included. I have this one specific, and I keep hearing myself say, so where are they all hiding? So can you tell us a little bit about that part of the process, the finding part of it?
Yeah. So it is finding. Like, people are just not going to pop up and decide, that they want to hang out with you. Those folk you might want to vet 5 times. So the finding is the recruiting, and recruiting really is a hard word to ingest, particularly if you're not skilled at recruiting. So one of the first things I always say is assume that you know very little about it and get some help. There are many, many tools, right, out there that can help you find the person you're looking for. But you will not find the person you're looking for until you know what person you're looking for. Right? So the job description is critical. It is an old-fashioned word, but it is one that has endured in our industry because it's important. Until you write it down, you're not going to know exactly what looks right. So that's a whole nother course. We'll have to do another power hour just on that. But the finding really does start with you narrowing down what you're looking for. The finding also will include the opportunity to decide whether you want to do a confidential search, whether you want to do a blind search, whether it's important to you to have a certain type of person. And type, I mean, not of course demographics, male, female, anything like that, but the type of energy that you want to bring into your organization, into your company, right? So you want to make sure that, my best advice is, don't go looking for yourself. Go looking for someone who can fill the gaps that you've identified in your business. When you're building a team, 1 or 2 persons, I always want to find someone. I always want to find someone who can fill a gap and bring a skill set that I don't have. Like, we're all bad bosses. I get that, but we are not. We are not complete. We don't have it all. So you want to make sure that you take the time to realize, hey, listen, this is what I am not the subject matter expert on. I need someone to do this. So don't be afraid either to dive in, to talk about within your networks who you're looking for and what you're looking for, and then be receptive to when that person comes to you, already have a vetting process in place.
So there's two things that you mentioned. I need to write this down. So my memory is horrible. I'd love to talk about the vetting process, but before we do, it was it's so freaking key. Steve Jobs that said, "I hire people who are smarter than me and let them tell me what to do." And so, as
Absolutely.
the owner, it's a CEO's job to have the vision and to execute it accordingly. And of course, that's a very oversimplified job description for a CEO. But most of the time, as small business owners, whether we're scaling larger or staying that way, I tend to find that we forget that a lot. And we end up trying to be the smartest person in the room when the successful people are actually quite the opposite. Let me hire people smarter than me because I have no idea what I'm doing in this area. So I love that you pointed that out.
Yeah, we have to be comfortable with releasing some aspects of this vision. We have to be really comfortable with releasing, because when you're dreaming and when you've decided that I'm going to birth this company, I'm going to put everything I've got into it, you want to make sure that you're able. And that's where the self-awareness comes in. We're always going to go back to that, right? Because we're starting something that we haven't done before. When we're talking about the first employee, we haven't done before, making sure that we always go back to what we need. Because here's what happens in the finding process. You run up against amazing brainiacs. You run up against people whose resumes look awesome, but they may not be the fit for where your agency, your company, your business is going. That's why you have to always keep what you need in mind.
Right. And that personality is super key as well. In my own path, I've discovered I need self-starters, people who are super resourceful. And I can hear a lot of people being like, well, yeah, that's just common sense. Like, oh. But for other people, yeah, they need someone who's going to ask more questions and be a little bit less resourceful because they have a more specific way of doing things. A lot of people ask who my business coach is, like, who's a business coach or the business coach? And I say my trauma therapist. Without my trauma therapist, I would not be able to do the work and see myself without the judgment, to know what I'm feeling, how I'm feeling it, how I want to be, how I want to show up to my employees.
Right. So you've done the work and you're doing the work of self-awareness.
Absolutely. And I fully believe that's what's propelled my business as fast as it has.
Awesome.
You did mention a blind process. So I want to come to that in a second. For now, can you talk a little bit about that vetting process? And I know I'm kind of throwing this as a curveball at you, but I love that part of it because I love to interview, whether I'm interviewing someone else or someone's interviewing me.
Sure. I would say first employee, and if you've not done this before, that you want to spend some time role playing. Sounds really elementary, but it's always good to build muscle memory. Right? So you're going to write down 1,000,001 questions. Mother Google is going to help you to know which questions to ask, which ones are from the 60s, which ones are from the 2008s, which ones are, the millennials are expecting. Bottom line is this, that you have to have a process, right? So you can't go into this thinking, you know what, let me just kind of have a conversation. No, I mean, today, those job seekers who are serious and the ones that you want are expecting you to be prepared for them. How about that? They're expecting you to be prepared. So vetting starts with, you get the job description, you do the check for the job description. That's just HR basics, right? And for anyone who is thinking about venturing into finding on their own without the use of a tool or the use of an HR expert or an agency, you want to make sure you do that check first. And then in today's world, we're all connected via Zoom, right? Have a quick conversation. Be prepared to ask the question so that this person can give you the opportunity to boast about who they are and how they might fit. Then you need to do it again. And if you have the time, do it again, because you want to make sure that that person is going to show up in different scenarios with different minds at the table in the way that they showed up the first time. That's important. If they knock your socks off the first time, expect them to level up the next time. Mm-hmm. Expect them to level up the third time. And you want to be fair, right? You want to say, give them what the process is so they can come prepared to engage you in your process and be successful. And then you want to make sure also that you decide who you don't want. So deciding what you do want is just as important as deciding who you don't want. Like, what are my knockouts? What does not fit for me? What doesn't work for me? And as you interview, it's totally okay to say, you know what? This person seems great, but as they show up first, second, and third time, not so much. And then,
go ahead.
Then one last thing, Lacey. I think, so at the top of this, I said there's some legalities and some legal pitfalls that you need to know when you're hiring. I mean, we don't have time for that, but certainly engaging an expert will help you to understand what labor requirements are, what you should and shouldn't say during an interview, what can't be said, what should be asked. All those things are really important because as you're engaging someone to be involved and hired at your company, you're establishing a relationship. And we are in a litigious world, and we want to protect our business.
Awesome. I think it's important to add that with all the preparation that we can do, there's always going to be that time where it doesn't go the way we want it to. We hire someone that's not a fit, even though we did everything right. And a lot of times what I've heard from business coaching clients of mine is, I didn't do it good. I wasn't well enough at this. I don't know what I'm doing. I messed it up. Like all the judgment words get thrown at it. And I really want to establish now and very clearly, we only learn by things going sideways. So it's not a mistake. It's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity. And it's a learning opportunity if we can go back without the judgment and say, what question could I have answered that could have foreseen this or got this personality trait out in the open? Apple and Microsoft, I looked at some of their interview questions and it was like, I would love to interview there just for the experience of it because they're so odd, but they know the type of person they're looking for in a personality wise and who's going to fit. And they know certain answers, certain questions, even though they seem random and oddball, the answers will tell them what they need to know. So
there's enough research out there for you to be able to pull on, just like you did, for future facing organizations, successful companies, to figure out, like, how do I figure out if this person is a self-starter? How do I figure out if this person, their vibration is really, really low? People are going to come hyped up for that interview. You want to penetrate and get behind that wall to see exactly who that person is. So don't be afraid to think out of the box. My thought is, what box? Like, go for it. This is your company, right?
Yeah. Was it my daughter? She's wise beyond her soon to be 15 years. I think it was her that said, think so far outside the box that you forget there is a box.
That's right. Yes. Good job, Mom. Good job.
Right? Melody, we need to do coffee and tea over here sometime. I think it'd be dangerous for the three of us.
It's all right. We'll come out with a whole nother idea and more employees, and we'll knock it out the box. Absolutely.
Right? All of a sudden I have a foreman and a whole thing. Can we talk about the blind hiring process a little bit? Because I'm super intrigued and passionate about this as well. Do you want me to introduce it or do you want to introduce it?
Why don't you introduce it and then let's tag team?
I like that idea. Yeah. So I work the best through examples and stories, so bear with me. After hiring a few people, I decided through my own research, I needed to become aware of potential biases I'm not currently aware of, and decided when it was time to hire an intern, I would do a completely blind hiring process, which looked like I had 16 resumes come in, and before I opened the file that housed them, I sent them off to someone removed from my company whom I trusted and scrubbed out any identifying information for ethnicity, race, gender, sexual orientation, anything that we could think of. And I had a few rounds from that. So I'm looking basically just at the bare facts of these resumes. And then I would narrow it down to, my goal was 5. And we held a phone interview that was scheduled in a way where I still didn't know name, anything like that. And it was my standard questions, which are anything but standard, because I'm looking for certain personalities. We had a second phone interview, and then I narrowed it down to 2. And at that point, I did a Zoom face-to-face twice with each, because I wanted to see how far we could get before identifying information came into play. I learned a lot about myself through that whole experience, and talking to the candidates all 16, the 10 and 5 that made it through said they loved it. It was weird, but they loved it because they're not used to it.
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts as an expert on the blind hiring process and executing it in a way that's comfortable and a safe space?
Sure. Let me first say that not everyone is going to even understand why there's a need for a blind hiring process, right?
That hurts.
Say it again.
So that hurts.
Oh, well, you get to a journey as a person in 21st century USA to decide that you want for your company the best minds, the best hearts, the best passion. And so it doesn't matter who the person is, right? When you get to that place, it doesn't matter. You want the person who's going to bring that fire that's already inside of you. And so the blind hiring process allows you to be targeted, strategically targeted on the skill sets that a person brings. And once you pull out of all, the extraneous stuff that makes all of us who we are, and you narrow it down to what this person brings to you, I agree with you that it allows you to see that this is the best person to do the job, the best skill set to do the job. And then you go about figuring out who that person is that has that skill set. And I'm glad you said that you actually pulled out all those aspects, because often as employers, what we'll do is we'll compare a person to a person rather than a person to the job, right? We'll get 5 people and we'll say, oh my gosh, Mary against David, David against Ian, Ian against Becky, but Mary, David, Ian, and Becky can't do the job. Right? So
Yep.
again, going back to what you need. And when you pull a blind search out, you're going back to what you need. You're very clear and targeted and strategic. And then you see the person more than once, which is what I love what you did. You did the phone interview. And I'll tell you, from the employee standpoint, from the recruit standpoint, from the hired person standpoint, it's different, but it gives them a liberty. It gives them a freedom to be themselves. And that's what you want. You want to see who that person is after you determine what that person can do for you. And it gives them an opportunity to be their best selves without the stress of what their name is or where they lived or where they came from. Interestingly enough, people will buy into the process when they know going in that you're looking to get to the heart of what they're able to bring to you. I say try it. If you haven't, try it.
In a complete, of course, live on Facebook, which is the perfect time for a moment of vulnerability and authenticity. It was terrifying to speak with you about this because in my head, I was warring with myself when I was considering the blind process. It was that, am I taking away who this person is by rubbing out some of these identifying factors? And what won out for me was what you keep talking about, that needs assessment. And I realized very quickly, not only did I become aware of biases I had that I didn't know I had, which was interesting, and I definitely can take into account as I go through more hiring process, but I realized that needs assessment, like you said, there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to say, well, I like this or this person and I would get along better. It purely was like, this is the job description, this is the resume, who's matching.
Right. And that's critical because I have to say this again, that if you don't do the search that way, we as entrepreneurs go back to what's familiar to us. And most entrepreneurs started as employees, right? Most of us started as employees, and we took the amazing leap and jump into hybrid or into solo, however it is that we did it. And we go back to what's comfortable to us, what's familiar to us. We're not looking for us. We're looking for the person who's going to bring the best skill set to fill the gaps on your team and in your vision and for your company. So that needs assessment is critical. So what happens once are we ready? What happens once you get this employee in, right? Blind search, full search, confidential search, LinkedIn, whoever it is that you use, right? You've got to get this person onboarded. which is important, right? And I feel like I'm jumping in, Lacey. I'm going to give you back the baton here.
No, please keep going. So I
Good.
was going to ask, I want to talk about the mindset shift after this. That onboarding process is critical because that's where we can lose our top talent if we don't
Yeah.
do that well. So
Yes.
keep going with what you were saying, please.
So top talent expects you again to be prepared for them, right? Today's world, there's so much information. We're on information overload. So people come prepared. New hires come prepared to say, is the equipment set up? Are there trainings set up? Right? Even if it's one employee, you have to have these things in place because, as a solopreneur, starting your own business, just getting started halfway through, successful, money, resources are, can be sparingly used. You want to make sure that you're making the best use of your resources. So when you get the person hired, you need to have an onboarding plan. You can't pull it out of your brain. And once they get there, be ready for the person. Calendar the time for this. Structure an onboarding plan that includes training, that includes time to find out who they are, includes time to find out who you are and what your business is, right? Decide how long that onboarding period is going to be. That will include full scale training and what to do, how to do it, when to do it. Reviewing of your handbook, which by the way, you have to have, even if you only have one. And I don't care if you have a half of an employee, you need a full handbook. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And there are many, many resources to help you get a handbook that covers all the legal aspects that are needed in an employee handbook, but does express the culture that you want to be fulfilled in your company. Handbooks are about sharing policies, procedures, and culture.
And they don't have to be fancy. Like we hear handbook and we're like, oh, get the laminator out and the crank machine that has the spirals. And
No.
really, I had an intern who took everything that I had and put it into a Google Doc so that it's shareable by the team. And it's great. It can be as fancy or as simple. The content is what matters.
Correct. Best practices for handbook is that you make sure you get a legal expert to look over it because you do want to make sure you cover, the legal aspects that need to be in a handbook because you want to make sure your employees understand what at will means. You want them to understand if there's a contract. You want them to understand what the protections are under the law. As an HR pro, my brain is always in court. My brain is always like prepared, expect things to go well, prepared when they don't. Um, yeah. Were you going to say something?
Can we talk about the difference between an intern and an employee? And then I would love to talk about how an HR expert such as yourself can help and the things that you don't do so that people know how to use HR experts appropriately.
Sure. So, an intern typically is someone who is in a learning phase, in a learning stage, and they're looking to engage you not as a full-time person, not as an employee, connected to an educational pursuit. Right? You can pay your interns. And if you don't pay them, you want to stay out of hot water legally by making sure that what they're getting from you is documented and attached to an academic pursuit. An employee comes with a whole host of other legalities wrapped around their engagement with your company. They can be at will, they could be contracted like teachers are, but you want to make sure that you're aware that there is an employer-employee relationship with this person. You tell them what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and it's clear that they're going to fulfill these aspects of their job. Right. There was a time when interns typically came in and were unpaid, and you kind of worked them to the bone. But in today's world, again, my brain is always in court. You want a clear relationship with this intern connected either to an academic pursuit or some developing aspect. From the heart of a good HR pro, you want to give the intern more than you're actually getting from them, right? You're providing an opportunity for development.
Okay, cool.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I've had both. I love both, and it's important to know the difference when we're hiring. So I've seen interns.
Hmm.
I hate to see them get abused.
Yeah, it's not cool. They're in the development process, development stage of their lives and their careers, and you're helping them get to the next step. Um, Often they'll have this aspect of what you need real quick to get done quickly, get done well. They'll be missing some other aspects, and you can help them along the way as a business owner. An employee is someone who should be coming to you with experience, some level of experience to help push, whatever the goal is for that role.
I have a sweet spot for interns because they're often viewed as, oh, it's free labor, and we've always paid our
Mm,
interns very
that's a
well.
good thing.
Yeah, I don't believe. Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
And
But
something, Lacey, interns can become great employees.
they can, and I've had a couple ask to stay on
Hmm.
afterward, and they're so eager to learn. But what's
Yes.
interesting is if we're open, again, going back to Steve Jobs, if I hire someone, even an intern, who is smarter than me in some aspect that I'm having a gap, that learning process with my interns has always 100% gone both ways. I'm learning from them as much as they're learning from me. It just happens to be in two different areas. And it's
Mm-hmm.
magic.
It
Pure magic.
is, and the great thing about when you engage an intern properly, you're setting up expectations for them as they become employees, your employee or someone else's employee. It's the good work that we do as leaders and that we do as adults to make sure that we're putting in a good amount of time to help develop someone else. It's just the right thing to do.
Treat them as you would want to be treated if you were a college student with bills out the toothpaste upon graduation, just trying
Correct.
to get some experience. Um, so we have a few minutes left. I'd love to talk about an HR expert as yourself, Melody. How do people use you in the right way? And what can you
Sure.
do? What can you not do? Because I hear like have a legal expert look over this. And like, could you just look over it?
Sure, I absolutely can, but I would always have a legal expert in my pocket.
Got it.
Yep, for sure. The type of work that I do outside of the work that I do at Wise, and as an HR expert that you guys have called me, and I fully accept that as an HR pro and vet, rebranding individuals, right? So oftentimes, particularly in the world of COVID, post-COVID, um, people have to pivot. Right? The world is not like it was prior to 2019. And so when there's a need to pivot, you often need someone else to say to you, this is what's inside of you. And let's take what's relatable and make it relevant. Take what's relatable and make it relevant. People don't often hear that because we fall back to the familiar, what we've done for the past 15 years, right? As someone who is looking to be employed. So rebranding, rethinking, retooling who you are. And then from the employer's standpoint, what someone like myself will do will help you to go through those stages, right? Let's figure out exactly what you need. Let's put it down. Let's develop a process that's a continuum from the first hello for the employee, the first phone interview, then to the interview process, then to the hiring process. Of course, we're engaging legal minds on this, to the application. You have to have an application. It's a little piece of the puzzle, but it gives you so much information about who that person is, right? And then you go into the onboarding. And from that, then there's employee relations. I can help you as an HR pro with making sure that you position your mindset, position expectations, and then you get what you expect. You also get what you measure.
I like that.
So, yeah. So, and in the last few minutes that we have, I think when we're talking about best practices in hiring and onboarding, offboarding as well, is that you want to measure, develop metrics that will help you to understand the cost that it takes to hire an employee, the cost that it takes to onboard and train. And then what are you expending as far as energy and resources to onboard and to train this person? So here's a quick metrics. I post a job. How long does it take me to get this position filled? Right? So that's time to fill. What does it cost? What is the cost of that process, including recruiting, hiring a recruiting firm, hiring someone possibly to do the job description, hiring someone to complete the application? What is the cost to that? And then after you've measured it and figured out if it makes sense, how long has that person been in your employ? What is your retention rate? What is the cost to keep that person employed? And then the offboarding process. There's some best practices with offboarding as well. Realize that it's okay to say goodbye. Can we start there? It is. Sometimes it's good.
Yeah, and necessary.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't think we give ourselves permission often enough at times to say goodbye.
Yeah. Of course, there's legalities again around saying goodbye. Some things you you got to make sure you dot every I and cross every T with letting somebody go, right? But in the perfect world, and we can create a perfect world to some extent, you want to make sure that as you're offboarding someone, you do it in the most kindest, the most consistent way, because networking is critical when you're talking about employing. Glassdoor is a beast of a review site. You can't help what people do. You can't control what people say, but to the extent of the things that you can control, as you're letting someone go, your handbook will help that person understand what offboarding looks like, what benefits are applicable to them, and what they can expect during that process. Again, it has to be written, it has to be documented, and it has to be communicated.
So a follow-up question then would be,
Mm-hmm.
if someone is at a position of 1099 subcontractors and not ready to do the expense of a full employee, W-2,
Right.
role, that whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
do we still employ you as our resource, or do we wait until we're jumping into the actual employee part of it?
So let me say, if you're engaging another human being to be involved in your business, you need to speak with an HR pro.
You need a Melody
Because
Johnson, is what I'm hearing.
absolutely, because an independent contractor, a part-time person, an intern, a cousin to help you is going to bring all of who they are, and their legalities around it all. So you want to make sure that you're able to clearly and as effectively as possible share with that person these are the expectations of how you engage with me, and you want to dot every I and cross every T, because if you don't, there's always a legal ramification to not being as effective and not being as prepared and as resourceful. So yeah, grab one of me.
Awesome. How do people find you, Melody?
So they can always find me at Wise. I am here. But socials, Melody Smith Johnson. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an amazing resource. No plug for LinkedIn, but it is. And yeah, I'm excited to people are my business. I wouldn't say I'm a people person. I'm a success person. Let's get it done. And if people are involved, I'm always happiest when I can help someone, either a business owner or an individual person, unfold and unleash the excellence that's in them. And having an HR pro is an amazing way to make that happen.
You're hired as far as I'm concerned. All right.
Do we have any questions from the folk who are on?
I have a question.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's in reference to your name. Is it Melody or Melanie?
How awesome you are. Yes, it's Melody, Melody.
Melody. Melody Smith Johnson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm doing what I can with what I got.
We have time for maybe one more question, if there is one.
So I just want to say, you know, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, it can be a scary journey, right? But the fire that's in you is enough. It really is. It's enough to keep you going. It's enough to discover what you don't know. What we don't know hurts us. So get some experts, some support around you to help you discover what you don't know. So this baby that you birthed can grow up and rock the world. I'm excited for all of you.
Awesome. Thank you, Melody. Thank you, everyone, for joining
Thank you.
Facebook, and for all of y'all on the Zoom. It's so nice to have company and smiling faces. So thank you. Appreciate you. And Melody, I can't thank you enough for volunteering your time and joining us today.
Cool beans. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Awesome. We'll talk to you later.
So much. Bye-bye.